What's up, guys? We have another episode this week of Tactic Tuesday. You guys seem to like the Tactic Tuesday reinvigoration last week when I did 5 ways to improve your Amazon listings today. If you guys didn't notice last week, I also wrote an article accompanied that video on my LinkedIn. All of the links are down below if you guys do want to follow me on some of my other social media. I usually try to add some unique content to each particular platform based around its kind of goal or intent. So it's not always kind of the same thing reshared over all of my social media. This week I want to have this video be surrounding trade shows, and surrounding trade shows because this week I'll actually be in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Mr. Olympia show, a show that I've been to countless times. And because I've been to not only Mr. Olympia, but countless food, beverage, nutritional supplement, CPG trade shows, I've seen a lot of trade show booths. And if you guys have worked with me before, you guys know I tend to be pretty bearish on trade shows, but I believe if you're going to do anything or spend anything, from a marketing perspective, you want to be able to optimize that experience the best way you can. Now, these three kind of areas or three tips might not be able to be utilized or implemented on a trade show this fall. You might have to wait until the winter, the spring trade show season. But regardless, I think that these three areas are super important for you to effectively get the most return on investment on your trade shows. So first one that I'd like to talk about is mostly surrounding like the design of your trade show booth. I think most people think about trade shows in a very similar way, and that's mostly probably surrounding cost, but it could also be surrounding just like creativity within the company. It also doesn't help that most trade shows are putting you within a box or a rectangle, and you think of the rectangle as kind of filling the outsides and not really thinking about it as a space that you can utilize however you kind of want to. What I'm kind of talking about with trade show design is following some trends that a lot of either brick and mortar restaurants, even parks, museums, art installations, like it doesn't matter. A lot of them are thinking about creating Instagrammable moments. This is like extremely important in the industries that I work in because those trade shows are not usually covered by traditional media outlets. So you're not going to see CNBC walking around. You're not going to see Bloomberg. You're not going to see any of these kind of like traditional media outlets covering it. You also won't see like a broad range of influencers, social influencers, or celebrities kind of walking around these trade shows. So this is much different than like a consumer electronics show or some show of that stature that gets just a ton of different outside the wall exposure or outside the wall impressions that are not kind of available or available at the level of those shows. But what I'm talking about with like Instagrammable moments is because social media and sharing has become so popular around the world, people do constantly kind of share their life through content. And if you give them a kind of a backdrop or some element that makes them want to take a picture and post it on Instagram, you tend to be able to create a lot of organic impressions. These are the type of impressions that will more than likely reach large audiences outside of the four walls of the trade show. And these are things that are going to be kind of lasting moments of both the people that were involved in that content, but also with just kind of their followings. They're going to see them on their pages. They're going to remember it. They might reshare it. But these are the type of moments or things that can create lasting impression with the expo goers that can keep you in kind of an elevated mind share to stay on top of all the kind of noise that's going on with kind of the ultra competitive environment in the category. Anything that you can do to keep some extra mind share within people is going to be a win for you overall. So think about different ways that you can create backdrops or easy ways for people to take pictures or engage with your booth in a way that would incite that person to share it on social media. That's the main goal. The main goal of any trade show is to to not only get attention, but keep attention. And if you're able to create Instagrammable moments, it's just a great way to do it. Second is a question that I always bring up with clients when we start talking about trade shows. We could be talking about anything, but trade shows in this example, and we talk about what's the intent of this event. And usually what I'm talking about with the trade show is this going to be thought of as primarily a sales perspective? Like, are you trying to get leads? Are you trying to sell product? Are you trying to create revenue? Or are you trying to create kind of brand engagement or some type of marketing event? And it's important to understand like what your intent is, because all of the way that you design the booth, you lay out the booth, you staff the booth, you think about just the way you prep for the booth, like with meetings before and a bunch of different things. All of those things need to map to what your intent is. So as an example, like if you want the trade show to be specific on sales, and not only with like accounts or creating sales at the show, you want to think about the event in a way that maps back to that. So you want to ensure that people can create easy transactions. You're staffing the booth in a way that is filled with people that understand the sales strategies. Your goal is to limit the marketing expenses or the cost exposure you have there, and make sure that you can create a culture within that event that is going to help you with completing sales. And then on the flip side, if you're not so much worried about creating sales at the trade show, you want to think about it in kind of the sense of branding or marketing, and really focus around kind of the idea of Instagrammable moments and connections and experiential marketing and a bunch of things. You want to think more long-term on that. You're not really thinking about creating a short-term ROI. You're really thinking about, how do I elevate my brand long-term that's going to help me, in the future. And that's staffing the booth maybe with athletes or creative people, photographers, videographers, creating content that you can utilize like over and over and over. That's a much different intent than it is with sales. What you see more times than not, you see CPG brands trying to do both. And what ends up happening is somebody that comes to your booth, they don't really understand what the intent is. They come in, you have a guy trying to sell them stuff, you have some athletes there, maybe you have some Instagrammable moments, you have a bunch of different things going on at once. And a lot of times the expo goer leave a little bit of a weird or confused feeling. And that's not what you want in there, because you didn't really provide the audience with a clear intent that makes them understand what you were there for, so they have a positive kind of thought of your brand. Just being around sales or not giving away the house in terms of marketing things or anything, though that maybe is not as exciting as maybe some of the booths when you walk around, an expo goer understands the intent there. And if they are somebody that is looking for a new product or looking to buy something at the show for a deal, those people are going to tend to go towards those booths because they know they can have a pretty clean interaction, a pretty useful kind of conversation around sales, and not be thrown with somebody trying to throw samples out, also try to keep crowd control with an athlete, also try to, hold a meeting. There's a bunch of different things going on at once. They're not able to get the kind of clear transaction that they were looking for. And in the same way, if somebody's not looking to buy anything at all at the trade show booth, and they're just looking to create connections or create Instagrammable moments and really have an experience, those people are not going to tend to go to those booths. And if you are kind of mixed around in your booth, you're going to tend to give that person a kind of a weird feeling, because they were getting sold something when they didn't want to. All they wanted to do is meet their favorite YouTuber. It's just a lot of different things that could happen there. So to me, though it doesn't need to be like a zero-sum game, you need to understand like a clear intent difference. So something like an 80-20 rule is probably going to be important. Most people are probably in that 60-40, 50-50 range, and that just creates a lot of chaos. And then kind of the last one is around like experiential marketing and just kind of the trends of what's going on when you are kind of at a trade show or at an event. And that has to do with creating connections, personal brands, people that are connected to you guys, athletes, some type of interaction that's going to create a lasting impression, or some lasting impression that's created with some experiential piece of your brand. If you look at more like non-traditional events, something like a South by Southwest, or sometimes you see at like a Coachella or some type of like, say, more millennial-driven type of event, you have a lot of brands that step outside the box of just traditional set up a table, give out some free samples, and do that. They're thinking about this from a more dynamic standpoint. With the South by Southwest, a lot of them are held at bars. One of the great ones that I saw this year was with Gatorade. They took over a bike shop that was down the street from me, and they turned it into this like human performance activation, which had some virtual reality, had a bunch of different elements of what Gatorade was kind of moving towards in the next couple of years, telling people we're not just a sugary electrolyte drink anymore, we are more than that. I know within nutritional supplements and kind of those ancillary areas, I see sometimes people doing meetups and stuff outside of the trade show hours, or even during the trade show hours. I know that pop-up shops and things like that have been pretty popular lately. I think Gymshark did some at different trade shows. I know this year, I think Ghost is doing one at a sneaker store, which is right on brand with them. So you don't need to think about this as just inside the walls. This could be outside the walls, anything to create the experience you need that's going to create a lasting impression. And these things are probably a lot more of an elevated strategy. This is not just creating some samples and handing some things out. These are thinking about brand elements. How do we elevate our brand elements in a way that's going to connect with people? How do we make sure we bring certain athletes that have a broad, diverse range of influence in the crowd? It's just a matter of thinking about this maybe holistically as brand experience, and not thinking about it as a pure transactional marketing perspective. So like I said, these three kind of tactics for improving your trade show experience not be able to be implemented at a Mr. Olympia this week, but these are things that you guys should be thinking about if you are going to spend $50,000 to $100,000 on a booth. If you guys have gotten this far, got some value out of this content, make sure you guys are hitting the thumbs up button. That helps me out a ton. Also, hit the subscribe button. That ensures you guys are always getting my content, even if you guys are not following me on some of my other social media. And as always, I don't charge for any of this content. You guys can utilize this however you want in your business. So if you are getting some value out of this, make sure you guys are telling a friend, tell a colleague. I want to grow this community a little bit stronger, a little bit bigger. I want to thank you guys for taking a little bit of time out of your day, and I'll see you guys on the next one.